what is the problem with that? All this material happiness that we gain, there is a problem. One is you're dependent on it. There is not a single pleasure that we call pleasure you can have without either an object or a person or a situation, right? You have to be dependent on one or the three things. Dhyan is the only thing that you can do independently. You don't need anything. You don't need anybody. You just have to be yourself. So that's the most independent thing, the most free thing you can do in the life is to be in Dhyan. Because Dhyan takes you to a place where you don't need anything. And that true meaning of freedom you experience only in Samadhi. And that's why we should pursue it. So if you really think about it, they say we are born free but always die slave. As you grow up, you are slave to the rules and regulation of the school, to the parents, society, rules and regulations of the IRS, then this, then that,
Wife.
government, wife, husband. Let's not have any battlefield over here. No battlefield here. So all these rules, regulations, even those consciously or subconsciously, we just follow. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're following them. It becomes just part of us. We drive at 55 miles an hour. We don't even think that we want to drive faster, but we just don't. Because we accepted it in such a way that true meaning of driving 100 miles an hour, we just never going to feel it. Because we never do it. You never think. So we are chained by every single object, every single situation. Sometimes you walk and you behaving in a civil fashion, which we should. There's nothing wrong with it because we are part of the society. But if you were in a jungle, you totally behave in a different way that you would have never dreamed of. But you never experience until you are in a jungle where you are not inhibited by anything. How would you behave? How would you know? See, the thing is that we are in a cage. And this cage, we are bound by the chains. If you are poor, you have the chains of iron. If you are rich, you have chains of gold. If you are very rich, an emperor or a king, or you have chains of gold with jewels and rubies and diamonds, still are chains. And we talk to each other, and we see each other's life, and all of their outside world defines our behavior, and we think it's okay. We go on. So we are all slaves, comforting each other that we are doing okay. This is the place, this is the way to be. At least we have comfort, we have security, we have that. Until you go beyond all that, how are you going to know what is the meaning of true life, of free life? We are never going to know. Until somebody comes along and they say there is a life, there is a world that is beyond all these things. And that's where it all began. Before we were bound by all these miseries of life, there was a freedom there. And that freedom is the state where we want to go. They said not too long ago, you were 50-year-old. Not too long ago, you were 40-year-old, 30-year-old, 20-year-old. Not too long ago, you were in mother's womb. Not too long ago, before that, you were few cells. Only microscope could see it. Your existence was so flimsy, right? And a little bit beyond that, you were a spirit. You were going around, you would pass by a tree and not a leaf would move. You could not make any impression. And you chose to come back to the life because of your vrittis or vasanas and all that. And you became in material life. So in meditation, you break your barriers, break your connections with all this world, considering as a dream, considering as a fake, considering as nothing but slavery. And you fly free. And you reach to a state where you go beyond in that state of spiritual state. And that's the place, that's the purpose of the meditation. And that's the beginning. That's where you're experiencing nothing but your rudimentary vasanas and rudimentary vrittis. And you even transcend those and ultimately reach enlightenment. So there is a jungle out there. Even your vrittis and vasanas, it's going to be tough to fight with those things. But that's the reality. But that's your own reality. Fighting with the outside world, you're slave to those things. Fighting is hard as it is to go into meditation. But once you keep going deep in that, and that's the reality. Outside you can even fake it. You may be not that smart, but people under you may think that you're smart, and you enjoy that moment of smartness, right? So that's an outside praise that you're going by, right? But you're happy. But that's a fake happiness. But deep inside, when you meditate, you know where you stand. And that's the reality. You cannot escape that. But that's where you have to face it. And that's a tough battle. But that's fine. But once you go there and you come to face, and then you go into the state of truthfulness, and you understand your limitations, you fight it. Not literally fight it, but you accept it. You see it. It's not even fighting. In meditation, there is no battle. We think there is a battle. There is no battle. In meditation, whatever you do, whatever limitations you have, as long as you become an observer of it, you realize that those were your deficiencies or everything only at a material level. But your existence transcends all that. And everybody's existence transcends all
What
that.
you are talking is right there.
There you go. I'm glad I made you work for it.
You are thinking in the right there.
So, at existence level, it really doesn't matter. Okay, you may have deficiencies. That's fine too. You may have really good achievements at the material level, but nothing to get excited about. So it's all built into it. And all that is a dream. But at the existence level, you are not defined by those things. At the material level, say you may be a liar, you may be a cheater, but fine, come face to face and see it. Be an observer. That's why Jesus said, bring all the sufferings of the herd, bring it to me. Because at that level, it's only Him and us, and there is nothing else. We are Him. At that level, nothing matters. So you submit all your deficiencies, all your so-called glories, all your so-called achievement. These are all relative. King without a kingdom and soldier without a shield is not a king, not a soldier. So all your suffering ends, and you are at a state, in a non-dual state. And that's where the happiness is. So you are transcending all these things at the meditation level. And this is all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. But the problem is the mind. So you have to realize the deficiencies of the mind and the shortcomings of the mind. And you have to literally have a dialogue with the mind. That's when you distance yourself. And this is one of the very effective ways to meditate, is to have a dialogue with the mind. When you have a dialogue with your mind, you know you are not the mind. And you start believing in it, that I am not the mind. And it takes a repeated practice. And when you say that, mind, you're so stupid. One, you cannot even see the total reality. You cannot have samyak darshan. So you're so deficient. And yet, you have the ego is so big that you know everything. How stupid are you? So first you have to start realizing the mind is stupid. From spiritual point of view. You're not talking about intelligence point of view, not from material plane. You may be really smart, but you could be smart and stupid from spiritual point of view, right? So you have to have dialogue with your mind, and you have to tell him that mind is the most stupid thing that exists, because that's the cause of suffering. And you have to realize the nature of the mind. Mind is going to argue. Mind is going to start the logical discussions. And all those discussions have no value. Like 2 out of 3 mangoes. No value. Eating a half, you ate my half of the fried leaf. No value. You can't argue. There is an end. Because finite world is going to have reached to a dead end. There is a finite end also. At some point you have to take off beyond the finite. That's when you go into the infinite. We have to realize that the mind is all about transactions. Either it's dealing with tamas, rajas, or tapas. This is all it can do, right? Now, one may be better than the other. Rajas may be better than tamas, and tapas may be better than rajas. But even when you go upscale in the ladder, nothing to feel good about. You still dependent. You still depend on the world, right? You're still doing the transaction. Even you're doing something good to someone, giving $10 or doing something good for them, you still need them. Without them, you cannot do any good. So even though you give them some money or do some good work for them, you still need them. to feel good. What are you getting in exchange? It is still an exchange. At material planes, this is all you can do. But to exist and realize the existence, you don't need nothing. And that's the true freedom. So at the mind level, to put it bluntly, and it's not my thought, and it was a very revolutionary thought, it was a Kabir's idea and the thought that mind is a prostitute. It was so revolutionary thinking that way. It has no loyalty. Mind will go anywhere. It is up for sale.
Whatever gives you more
Whatever
pleasure.
comes, whatever gives the most pleasure, it will go there. In same thing with the money. Prostitute exchange is the highest bidder, goes to the highest bidder. No loyalty. It will go anywhere, and as soon as that pleasure ends, shift somewhere else. So it's all about transactions. Prostitutes cannot feel the real love. Real love is in giving. This is not about giving. It's about receiving and giving the most, but in exchange. It's even exchange because it's happening at the material plane, right? At the higher plane, it's all about giving. God only can give. God can never receive, because whatever it receives is also God. You offer flowers. What is flower? It's
Food.
God.
Who created?
You give food, it's part of the nature. God cannot escape. God says, here you go. Same thing, come back to me again. Because God is the true giver. The sukh, the love, and everything radiates out. So when you only give, you are a small version of God. You're mimicking God because you're giving it out. And that's the nature of God. So you're mimicking God by giving it out. You're at the sukh level, you want to expand. God is infinite. Brahma, what is the name Brahma means? It's pervasive. It pervades everywhere. It's infinite. Right? So when you're dukhi, what do? You're limiting yourself in a corner. You don't want to talk to anyone. You don't want to have parties. You don't want to go to picnics. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to invite people. You don't feel right. And you hold on to your thoughts, your ideas, and you're ruminating inside in the material world. Of course, it's wrong, but you don't want to mix it. As soon as you have good things, you want to expand. So Sukh is a sign of Paramatma. Sukh is there in this world to give you the realization of Paramatma. Paramatma is pervasive. He pervades everywhere. So Sukh is a minimal, small reflection of God. So that's the time you have to think of God. That's the time people don't think of God. So that's why they have Dukh again. So that's how it goes. So again, you have to have dialogue with the mind. You have to realize the limitations of the mind and the stupidity of the mind, and really have to realize that mind is not going to take you anywhere. That kind of transaction type of mentality, where does it take you? Right? In your life even, like when you say in a married life or in any exchange that you have, any relation that you have, as long as you want something out of the relationship, it's not going to happen. Like I always say, when you see a patient, you want to milk him and don't care about anybody. It's not going to help the patient. You will have more money, but it's not going to last too long. Okay, then you become a good businessman. You want to do something for the patient, but you want in exchange, you want to fully paid. But then at some point you go beyond that, and he says, okay, the guy doesn't have any money, he doesn't have a job, let me not do it, let me not charge him this and that. Yes, he's going to this and that, but it's okay. That's when you start realizing the joy is only in giving. And that joy cannot be defined in material life. But you keep doing it, and at some point, you don't even need nothing. But the dhyan and meditation and the bliss is totally different because it's not dependent on anybody else. So whenever you're going beyond, so the mind is equated to the prostitute. And it was one of the most amazing thoughts that I came out, and it was in the mouth of Kabir. Kabir said, this is what it is. You realize that it's such a stupid way of life. And yet we use mind all the time. And we live with the mind all the time. And we believe in mind all the time. But look where your faith is. Mind is transitory. Mind dies every second. Every second a new thing comes up, it drops the old thing, goes after a new thing. So the old mind is dead, and the new mind is born again. So all these things that are going to be dead, how is it going to take to Paramatma, which is immortal? So even your jap, your mala, your murtis, everything is material. How those material things is going to take you anywhere? Those are just means. But ultimate journey is inside. He says, you create your own statues, and then you worship your own statues. See, the statues are even smaller than you, because you created the statues. So if we are creation of the God, obviously we are shorter and smaller than God, but the murtis are even smaller than us. How can they take us to God? Unless you realize yourself and you realize your own potential of the miniature godhood inside, those statues have no value. Those mala has no value, jap has no value, mantras have no value. None of those have values unless accompanied by bhav. And that's why we are discussing Shanta Sudaras. Those bhavs have to be there. Bhavs can be good and bhavs can be bad. So these 16 bhavs which are going to be coming are the superior bhavs which are going to take us in that direction. So that's where we want to go. So one problem with the material happiness is makes you dependent. So you always depend on material world. So we have to realize that any pleasure that we really have in life, if you really break it down, even from logical point of view, what happens? We always talk about that. First, it starts with existence. You don't exist, no experience exists. So existence is a must. And then you add awareness to that. You could be existing, but you may not be aware. You could be reading a book, and Deepak passes by. I'm still busy reading a book. He passed by, I couldn't see him. Because even though theoretically I should be able to see him or perceive his footprints, I didn't. Because my mind was focused in reading. So again, its awareness was directed somewhere else. So awareness has directions. So starting point is the existence. And a branch comes out, it's like a seedling. It can go one way or the other. But now it's looking for direction. And it finds something interesting, the awareness goes in that direction. So awareness is a tool that's part of our mind that makes us direct us in certain directions, right? So then first we have existence and we have a sprout of awareness. Now it's up to us to go whichever direction we're going, right? Then we select the objects. With ultimate bhav being, we want to receive something. So that bhav is our transaction nature, that I want to have something so that I enjoy. Thinking that, so again, the direction starts going in a wrong direction. But regardless, awareness is there. The raw awareness, without having attached anywhere, until the object comes in front of us, and then that seedling or the arm gets attached to that object. It reflects on it, comes back, and then awareness perceives the object, and then pleasure starts. But not realizing that without existence, none of this would have happened. So when you meditate, you go to the bottom of that experience. And it's like a picture, and there is a canvas. You come and paint all those paintings and have all the change it again. You don't like it, it's oil paint, no problem. You paint all over again. A lot of times you go into these European churches, right? So all these ancient paintings, sometimes with the very infrared technology, they find out that these are like famous paintings by Leonardo or a lot of famous paintings, and they are dedicated. They run out of canvases, they paint all over again, because for them it's not a big deal. But you realize that there is another masterpiece hidden behind that painting, and sometimes 3 or 4 layers. So another masterpiece is created, but the canvas is always there. So our existence is that canvas. So a lot of these paintings have been done and erased and done again and painted again, All these things have been going on, but we get carried away on those paintings. We never think of the canvas. Canvas is the one that's holding. It's like a movie screen. A lot of movies can get